So we're with the new HiLux, and it's got a pretty different look. But it's based on the same platform, and under the surface, it's basically the same. But to be honest, they've actually made a couple of really important changes. Let's talk about it. So judging by the comments, the new HiLux has already been received quite controversially, this 9th generation HiLux. Well, today I'm here to settle the score. Is the new HiLux any good? I've got all the information. I've tested it off-road and on-road. I've driven every single trim available on sale in Australia now, and I've come to a conclusion that you might be surprised by. So as we always do, I'm gonna be giving this thing lots of sauce around the streets. I'm gonna be seeing exactly what's changed with this new generation HiLux, because like we've said, it's pretty much just a heavy facelift. I'll go through all of the interior changes, the way this thing drives, and then of course I'm going to end on my final thoughts. What do I think of the new generation HiLux? Let's get into it. All right guys, so let's talk pricing now for the new HiLux range, because things have changed quite drastically this year. So they've deleted the other powertrain options. You now only get the 2.8 litre turbo diesel 1GD powertrain across the range, and that includes other trims that you didn't get access to that powertrain in the past. So the range now kicks off at $33,990 for the Workmate 4x2 with the manual transmission. So yeah, significantly more expensive than the starting price of the range for the last generation, but just keep in mind that you are getting that 2.8 litre turbo diesel now. This, on the other hand, is the Rogue, which is a 4x4 pickup. It is the flagship of the range alongside the Rugged X, and they both come in at $71,990 before on-road costs. So yes, you can either get this, or you can spend a few grand more and get something like a Kia Tasman X Pro. If that's a little too rich for your blood, you could go for something like an SR5 with a manual transmission, and that comes in at $63,990 before on-road costs. Now, you can also option on the SR5 a premium interior package, which the Rogue gets everything as standard. It just makes the interior feel a bit nicer with leather seats, 8-speaker JBL sound system, and a larger digital instrument cluster. But let's talk about the way that this top-spec HiLux Rogue looks, because yeah, it looks pretty different from before. Now, this Ute was designed by the Toyota design team here in Melbourne in conjunction with the design team in Thailand, and they actually are the same team that designed the new Toyota HiLux Dakar, which looks absolutely sick. They call this design language Cyber Sumo, and I can only assume that that just means modern and extremely top heavy, because this thing is very top heavy. And on video, on the screen, I guarantee it looks more top heavy than what I'm looking at here in person. It looks a lot more balanced in person. You'll notice this very interesting grille here, which looks a little bit like a cheese grater, but I'm sure the airflow is great. You get Toyota spelt out here, very heritage look with this slimline panel, and that extends to these really slim and highly placed LED headlights, which you do get really bright LED headlights on the SR5 and above. The reason they've placed these headlights so high is that when you are off-roading and there's brush and scrub, it reduces the risk of scratching the headlight housing, which is very good. As you can see, there's just really aggressive and angular lines everywhere. It looks super mean. You also get your radar there and cameras up the top there, because this thing now comes with an updated range of safety features, including lane trace assist because of the new electronic power steering. You also get this plastic bumper down here, but you do get a steel bash plate down the bottom. The Rugged X, which is more of an off-road focused trim, gets a more durable steel bash plate, as well as 2 recovery points at the front and rear, and it does come with a tow wiring harness as well. I also really love this feverish red. It looks very, very aggressive, but let's check out the side. Okay guys, and coming to the side of the HiLux, and this is where you can really tell that this thing hasn't changed much in terms of its platform. In fact, the only bodywork that's different is in front of the A-pillar and behind the D-pillar. So this front here and that rear tray, that's slightly different. So what do you get in the new Rogue? Well, you do get this cool matte black alloy, which has been absolutely caked in mud because we've been doing some pretty hardcore off-roading today. You do get Dunlop Grand Trek all-terrain 31 tires, which are pretty decent rubber. I do like the inclusion of all-terrain tires as standard across the range. As you can see, we do get this plastic side step. I'd hate to scrape some rocks on that, not that I've done that today. We also get keyless entry and go, and all the door handles are black, including this new, more modernized font version of HiLux there. We also get a 360 camera, blacked out mirror caps, as well as some privacy glass at the rear. And the Rogue also gets this sailplane sports bar, which looks pretty cool. But let's check out the rear. Guys, I'll tell you something you couldn't do on your old HiLux. Stand on a side step and fall off. And that's because you now get a side step, which is very, very good to see. Surprised it took Toyota this long to get that, but you know what? Better late than never. So here on the Rogue, you do get this blacked out Toyota lettering, which is, it's kind of like inserted in there. It looks very cool. You also get Rogue lettering spelt out there. Check this out. Ooh, that is nice and damped. That actually was in a recent facelift, I think late last year for the HiLux, but it's good to see that carries over to the new generation. As you can see here on the Rogue, we do have all of our trailer wiring as well as a tow kit there. In terms of towing, the HiLux is capable of towing up to 3.5 tons. In terms of GVM for the SR5 and Rogue, it is 3,120 kilos, and the gross combination mass for all the 4x4 models is 6,300 kilos. You can carry up to 1,490 kilos on the front axle and 1,700 kilos on the rear axle. So pretty decent numbers there, and another good thing is you do get a full-size spare. If we do open up this nice and dampened tailgate, you'll actually notice we get this marine grade carpet here in the back, which actually does help reduce a bit of noise coming from the tray. It also means you can sleep in the back of your HiLux and have a nice comfortable night's sleep if you're that way inclined. We do get a powered roll top tonneau as well, which does actually add probably about 150 kilos of weight here at the back. And because they tuned the suspension of the HiLux, typically expecting you to have tools and workmates in the back seats, they typically tune the suspension with about 350 kilos laden weight. So having all that extra weight from the mechanism of this roll top tonneau actually improves the ride quality significantly for the HiLux Rogue, but we'll get back to that shortly. We do get a couple of rated hooks in the back, and in terms of the tray dimensions themselves, they are completely unchanged from the previous generation HiLux. So they are on screen now. The unfortunate thing about the HiLux is you cannot fit a standard Australian pallet in the tray. So that's a bit of a shame, but that's no different from before. But let's check out the interior and see what they've changed. Alrighty guys, coming to the interior now of the updated HiLux, and this is where things are pretty different from before. So where the old HiLux was very much, you know, a workhorse and very Spartan on the interior, this feels a lot more plush. So you get this beautiful leather wrapped steering wheel, feels nice and comfortable in the hands. Very similar design to what you'd find in something like the new Prado. You get all of your buttons to control the new 12.3 inch digital instrument cluster that you get, no more analog gauges, and it shows plenty of information, including your fuel economy, the different roll and tilt if you're doing off-roading, all kinds of information there. We also get our adaptive cruise control on the right, which now includes lane keep assist, not lane departure warning. So it won't just bounce you around in the lane now, it will actually hold you in the center of the lane, which is a massive difference. We also get these new leather accented seats. They feel pretty nice and comfortable. They have been redesigned from the last HiLux and kind of needed it, to be honest. These are also power adjusting with lumbar support. You can get into a really good driving position with under thigh support as well, and they're also heated, but no cooling, unfortunately, which is actually a bit of a shame because I feel like in a work ute, or any ute for that matter, you just really want cooled seats. You also get a heated steering wheel, which is a good inclusion. And speaking of climate, you actually get a nice dual zone climate controls. I like the fact that they've kept the physical layout of the buttons and not relegated all to the screen. We also get this new shifter, which is, you know, we've seen it before in Prado and Land Cruiser, and it's a good unit. You move it over, you get manual mode. You also get a very decent 360 camera if we put it in reverse, which also includes parking sensors for front and rear, which I annoyingly couldn't figure out how to turn off. So when we were doing off-roading, as you'll see later in the video, those parking sensors were going pretty wild. In terms of other tech at the front, you get a wireless phone charger as well as a couple of USB-C ports. You do get wireless Apple CarPlay as standard on this beautiful 12.3 inch infotainment system. I say beautiful in that it's a nice, big, bright screen, but there's really not too much to it. There's no off-road displays. You do get a trail camera mode on the SR5 and above, but it's a very, very basic infotainment system, and that's kind of what we've come to expect from Toyota. Another thing I really like is if we open up this top storage area, it actually pipes in some of the air from the climate system. So if you want to keep drinks cool or just things cool in general, maybe a sandwich for lunch or something, chuck it in here and it'll stay nice and cool with your aircon, which is a cool feature. We also get a glove box down here, which is a decent enough size, nothing crazy there. And we also get a couple of cup holders here up on the dash, which you can close away with a nice soft close action, but the lower trims don't get the cover, unfortunately. And one thing you'll notice, actually, if you look at this entire dashboard section, is it kind of mirrors the look of the grille. It's got the same shape as the headlights with these air vents here on the sides. I guess they were going for the Cyber Sumo theme on the interior as well, which is a cool touch. Over here, we have our off-road control center. We've got all of our different modes and multi-terrain select. So because the HiLux is still a part-time four-wheel drive system, you basically want to be keeping it in 2 high most of the time on the road. And then if you go on like a gravel track, you'd switch it to 4 high. So I can just switch it to 4 high while it's in park and off we go. But if we want to switch it into 4 low, we have to put the car into neutral, push down, switch it into 4 low, and now we can access our multi-terrain select as well, which includes different modes such as sand, mud, and rock. And then also if we switch back to 4 high, there's also a mode called deep snow. So yeah, you get a bunch of different terrain modes. It just remaps the torque from the throttle and just allows you to have better control when you're rock crawling or going through different terrains. That's good to see. We also get a rear locking diff here and also hill descent control, which is available on some of the higher trims, just not the SR and Workmate, I believe. If we look at just the overall quality of materials, I have to say up here it feels quite nice, but just like every other HiLux, up here it's still hard, scratchy plastics, which is a bit of a shame, though I have to say they have worked on NVH quite a lot, as you'll see in the driving section. Over here we get nice soft materials, but all the way along here it's still hard, scratchy, but at least you get some nice soft materials for your arm to rest on. We also get some decent sized door bins with cup holders, 2 more cup holders here in the center, which are also removable, and that can expand storage here in this center console. This armrest here is nice. I like the stitching on it, just kind of accents it really nicely. You can open it up and get a decent sized storage area in there. You can fit a water bottle if you want. You also get a household socket in there, which is 300 watts, so you can plug in and charge some higher powered devices if you need to here in the front, as well as a 12-volt socky-wocky there as well. So I think they've really thought about ergonomics with this generation of the HiLux. They've definitely improved it. They did say that they widened the cabin, but I might have misinterpreted what they said. It's definitely not wider. It's the exact same width of the previous HiLux, but it does actually feel a bit wider. I guess you get a wider screen, a new digital instrument cluster, new steering wheel. It does feel like a pretty decent upgrade in here. But let's check out the back seats. Okay, before we come to the back seats, let's examine the practicality. So we can lift up the bottom. I can't figure out how to pull this forward. In fact, I don't think you can, which is a bit of a shame. But unfortunately, it doesn't really give you much storage space in the back seats. You get a little bit here, which is kind of reserved for if you want to store your tow ball here when you're not using it and stuff like that. There's really not much space. But unfortunately, you can't lift up the other 2 seats, and that's because of your 48-volt mild hybrid battery, which does live under the floor. That is an option on some of the trims. However, here on the Rogue and the Rugged X and the SR5, you don't really have a choice in the matter, which is a bit of a shame. But getting in with this massive grab handle, let's see how much space we've got. So in terms of space in the back, it is still a HiLux, so unfortunately the floor is pretty raised up because of the ladder frame chassis. That's something that's been the case for a very long time and it won't change on this platform. So that results in me having not the best leg angle for comfort for longer journeys, and in fact I don't have that much space behind myself, and tow room is kind of non-existent. I do have plenty of headroom though, which is good, and amenities back here are fine. I get a couple of air vents as well as a couple of USB-C ports and some map pockets here, as well as a hook which can hold up to 4 kilos. I also get a door bin which can fit an empty bottle, as well as a little storage card here in the door. Materials though, unfortunately, a bit crap. The seats themselves feel nice, they are bolstered, but the seating angle is not overly comfortable if I'm being honest. We can also fold down this center armrest, get a nice soft armrest there, as well as a couple of cup holders, but yeah, apart from that, it's kind of it. So yeah, I'm not overly impressed with the back seats. They haven't really changed much, if I'm being honest, for this new HiLux. But you know what I am impressed by? CarSauce Buy. Guys, if you're in the market for any new car, you have to scan the QR code on the screen now. That's because we have a dedicated team of car buys that will go out and commit acts of violence against dealers that will get you the best price possible on your new car. In fact, we've already helped thousands of you guys go through the service already, and you've saved tons of money on your new cars. So don't go through the hassle of haggling at a dealership. Let our smart back-end logic match you up with the best dealer for you. All right, guys, it's time to drive this thing off-road. Rightio guys, we are off-roading in the new HiLux. I'm in the SR trim, which is second from the bottom, just above the Workmate. We're in the, bloody hell, we're in the 4x4, which means we have the heavy duty suspension tune. This is more designed for heavy payloads and towing, not really off-roading like this. That doesn't mean it's not a good off-roader though. So we do have a part-time four-wheel drive system. I am currently in 4 low, and we also have a bunch of different terrain modes. So I've just switched back into 4 high, and we will switch into 4 low soon when we do the hill climb. So let's talk a bit about the off-road credentials of the HiLux, because, well, they remain pretty much unchanged. So you still get the same 224 mils of ground clearance, and you get a 29-degree approach angle, which is decent, 25-degree departure angle. And that is for all trims except the Rugged X, which does get slightly better departure angles. The main changes are going to be those suspension changes. Now, the thing is, because I'm in the SR trim, I have the heavy duty suspension here, which gives us more payload, but it definitely makes for a stiffer and jerkier ride. The thing is, the major updates for the HiLux, well, they pretty much carry through the entire range. So I would say the major difference you can feel with this one compared to the previous generation is the new electric power steering. It just completely changes the steering characteristic of this car. Makes it way more easy to maneuver in these tighter spaces. I don't have to bloody flex all my muscles to turn the steering wheel. And here we are, we're pretty much at the beginning of the hill climb. So once I round this corner, I'm going to switch into 4 low to get up this pretty serious hill. And we're gonna see how the HiLux can do. A couple more things. I do get a locking rear diff. However, I'm not going to need it for this. I'll just need 4 low mode. So I'll push this in, chuck it into 4 low. So annoyingly, there is no easy way to turn off the bloody parking sensors. So you're going to be hearing that as I go up the hill. But one thing I do get on this trim is a multi-terrain select mode. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch it into rock mode. So that should help us distribute torque more effectively to get up this hill. All right, here we go. Up I go. I can also switch it into manual mode, but no need here. Should be completely fine in auto to get up here. And it looks like we've got a pretty decent sized route coming up on that left-hand side. Let's see if we can just use our momentum easy on the throttle just to get up that. Yeah, easy. No problem at all. So I guess that's one of the advantages of having this 2.8 litre turbo diesel now across the range, including some trims that you used to not be able to get it on. I'm gonna just be careful of that rock. Ooh. I think I went over the rock. But as I was saying, that 2.8 litre turbo diesel, it's just a lot torquier. Helps with this kind of off-roading as we just pick our line through here. Now this trim unfortunately doesn't get the trail camera that does help with placing the wheels on the trail. But yeah, absolutely no issues getting up this hill, as you'd expect from a HiLux. You know, don't send a Ute to do a bloody HiLux job. So yeah, in terms of off-roading, I wouldn't say really anything's that different with the new HiLux. I mean, the new steering makes a difference, but I do think the major differences are gonna be with that multi-purpose suspension tune driving on the road. So let's test that out. Alrighty guys, driving the HiLux Rogue, the new HiLux Rogue on the road. So let's talk about it. So what is new with this HiLux? I mean, there's a couple of things. So they have completely changed the coils. It has a new suspension tune at the rear, so it is what they call a multi-purpose suspension tune. Basically, it just makes it more lifestyle oriented. It makes it more comfortable for everyday driving and less jittery at the rear. And that is especially true here in this Rogue trim, because we do get that heavy roll top tonneau at the rear, which adds about 100, maybe 150 kilos to the rear tray, and basically just helps settle the suspension. Now, I was speaking to one of the local ride and handling tuners of the HiLux here in Australia, and he was saying that they typically tune suspensions with, you know, 300, maybe 350 kilos of laden load in mind. And what that means is that typically when you have no weight in the back, that will produce a more uncomfortable, more jittery ride. What else is new? Well, we've got a stiffer front stabilizer bar, which should reduce pitch and sway in corners, and this thing actually does genuinely handle better than before. It feels like it can handle tighter, twistier roads better, which is quite a testament to what they've done with essentially minimal changes here to the platform. Powering this thing now as the standalone powertrain for the range is the very well-renowned 1GD, which is the 2.8 litre turbo diesel powertrain. So they have deleted the 2.4 and 2.7 litre options. Now you can only get this, which does obviously raise the price of entry for the Workmate, but you couldn't previously get that powertrain in the Workmate anyway. It produces 150 kilowatts of power, 500 Newton meters of torque here with this 6-speed auto transmission. If you do go for the 6-speed manual, it does produce slightly less torque at 420 Newton meters. In terms of fuel economy, I've been averaging 9.6 liters per 100 kilometers, so it's definitely not the most frugal turbo powertrain. If you want that, I mean, there's plug-in hybrid options. You can go for a Kia Tasman, which is a much more underpowered diesel powertrain, and that thing will get you, I don't know, 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers. But this thing has significantly more torque, and it's a very well-renowned powertrain if you just want something that's reliable and proven. In terms of driving comfort, I mean, this is a world of difference from the last HiLux. You get this electric power steering now, which makes all the difference around town, makes it way more easy to maneuver, and even on the highway, you still feel very much in control with the heavier steering. So I'm glad that they've added that. It also helps with off-roading as well, because with the hydraulic steering before, if you hit a rock or something, it could really yank the steering wheel out of your hand. So that's no longer the case. And because they've added electric power steering, that now gives them the ability to add lane keep assist, which makes it way easier to live with. It can basically drive itself down a highway, no problem. So definitely a couple of really good changes that make the HiLux a lot easier to live with on a daily basis. But let's see how this thing drives off-road. Rightio guys, we're off-roading now in the Rogue. I'm in low range, and because we're in the Rogue, we now get this cool trail cam. So we can see exactly where the wheels are being placed on the trail. We also get hill descent control, which is on the SR and above. Before we were in the Workmate, and we didn't get any of the extra frills like that, but we did get the rear locker as well. So we're going to just test the wheel articulation here of this HiLux Rogue. This thing does come with the multi-purpose suspension, so it's a little bit softer sprung, and this will be testing out the suspension travel distance. So this is actually a perfect example of where you'd want that trail camera. So as you can see with the trail cam, it really lets us maneuver and get close to that wall on the left without scraping the entire side of our car. Very useful there. You can also see the car is on a pretty decent angle. It looks like probably 20 degrees or something on the side there. But we are looking golden on the left. Yeah, this thing's just crawling over. No challenge whatsoever. And I can kind of just purely rely on that trail camera, to be honest. Makes it a lot easier. Ooh. Almost got the side step on there, but we avoided it. So now we're doing the opposite side. Still looking good with the side steps. Now we're going to tip in on the left in a second. Oh, just like that. I have to say I'm finding the Rogue much more comfy in terms of the suspension compared to the SR and the Workmate. So there was a bit of off-roading in the Rogue, just testing out the wheel articulation. By the way, this does come with the larger 18-inch wheels, but I'm very grateful for the trail camera on this one. That was very helpful, even though I scraped the side step. Alrighty guys, what are my final thoughts now on the updated HiLux? After spending a couple of days with it, I have to say I went into this with kind of muted expectations. After watching Matt's videos and his opinions of the new HiLux, I didn't think it would be the greatest update in the world, but I have to say I really like this new design from the front. I like the cyber sumo theme that they're going for. The interior has been very tastefully updated. I like the fact that you get the larger screen across the range, and that electric power steering really makes a massive difference. It really just feels like a lifestyle ute now, not just a workhorse. The fact that they've kept it the same platform is actually a positive thing for most people that buy HiLuxes. Yes, there are more modern, more capable, more high-tech utes out there on the market. You can buy them, like the Ford Ranger and the Kia Tasman, but will they get you across Australia? I don't know if I would trust them as much as I would trust a HiLux, especially with this trusty 1GD 2.8 litre turbo diesel engine. Yes, there are a few disappointing things about the new HiLux, like the deletion of the wider track for the Rugged X and Rogue trims, but overall I have to say this is still a very compelling package for people that want a reliable ute that will get them wherever they need to go. But of course, let me know what you think about the HiLux down in the comments below. Are you going to be running out to buy the new generation HiLux? Do you like the new design just like Matt and I? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you guys are after any new car, whether it's a Toyota HiLux or maybe a Kia Tasman or something else, make sure you scan the QR code on the screen now, and our dedicated team of car buyers will go out and they will throat punch dealers to get you the best price possible on your next car. As always, leave a like, subscribe so you will be notified whenever we get to review the latest new cars in Australia. Ciao for now.